Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, all of the people that have been listening along. It's the Mr. Sitter Show. That's right, show. We're going with show. I've got lights and cameras and shit. This is more than just a podcast. It's fucking reductive to call it a podcast. Welcome back. Episode 2 in the lead up to the World Cup. To all the clap fans that are back, thank you very much. To everybody that listened last week, thank you very much. If you're back, you may have noticed that the setup is slightly changing. You may not have noticed at all, but I'm pointing it out now, just to add my trademark neurosis to the proceedings. This was supposed to be how it looked like the whole time, but I had to move my personal desk into the room to do the recording because fuck Maya. Yeah, they took a week longer than when I ordered this specific desk to do this specific show for this show, and fuck Maya. That's our first fuck that person of today, and there's going to be a lot of them because we've got one hell of an episode coming. I've wanted to do this for a while, just personally, and then I thought, what a great opportunity to do it for content. You know, what a good opportunity to prostitute my every thought the way all of the people on the internet do. If you engage in a creative venture for your fucking life. So that's what we're going to do, and we are going to rank every single World Cup that has taken place in my lifetime. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna tell you which ones I enjoyed the most and which ones I enjoyed the least, in order, starting from in ascending order. So we're gonna move towards the absolute best World Cup. And I am 30, so there have been a lot. But I'm not going to do 1994 because I was 2, and come on, you didn't, you obviously didn't watch, So we're doing that, and that's going to come in a little bit because first we're just going to have a little chat about shit that happened on the weekend. I've got to be straight up with you guys. Didn't watch any Premier League this weekend, but I am thrilled to see Arsenal continue to kick ass because this isn't going to resonate very well with a lot of I get the whole you pick a team and you're loyal, whatever, and theoretically Chelsea are my Premier League team, but honestly for the last 5 years or so, I've just fucking fair weather supported. You can't not love the Premier League if you're a football fan, but I've just picked a storyline, I picked a team that kind of appeals to me, and I've just decided I want to see this team doing well. I binged Arsenal All or Nothing from last season, and if you haven't watched it, do, because it's amazing, purely to get into the mind of Mikel Arteta. I love him. He's a lunatic. He's a maverick. He's a truly complex character, extremely vulnerable at times. He does so much weird shit. I won't spoil it, but get Amazon, check it out. And from the moment I saw that, I was like, I hope these cunts win the league. And lo and behold, they're not going to win the league, but it looks like it might happen. So, yay Arsenal. I'm so happy that they kicked Chelsea's ass, because Chelsea are ass. I'm properly done with them. They are a soulless, just heartless organization, and I'm fucking sick of them. So I'm glad Arsenal doing well. I wasn't wrong about Almiron. He scored against Southampton. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything. You're going to have forgotten Almiron by next season. He is, a friend of mine sent me a DM that perfectly encapsulated what Almiron is. He is a vestige of, Mark Hughes' Man City. This is Newcastle before they become the best team in the world. You're not going to fucking remember his name. He's like Elano. Do you guys remember Elano? That's right, you don't remember Elano because he was in the Man City team that was shit. You're not going to remember Miggy. Miggy's done. The end. I did, however, of course, watch the Derby d'Italia, which is the biggest game of football imaginable. It's Juve versus Inter, for those of you living under a rock, or for those Premier League head in the sand dickheads. What a game. Biggest win of the season for Juve. I did say last week we're going to go on to win the league, and now we are looking at 8 games. No losses. 0 goals conceded in the league. 10 points away from Napoli, who are in top spot, who, as I predicted last week, are going to have a very, very catastrophic just self-destruction after the World Cup. 4 points from Milan, 2 points behind Atalanta and Lazio, and Juventus actually play against Lazio in the last game before the World Cup. It's coming. We're winning the league. I told you last week. I'm going to say it until it seems improbable. But like I said, clairvoyant. I'm the guy. Or I'm the guy you should be listening to. Things are looking good in the lead up to the World Cup for Juve. The football's still looking pretty shit. But hey, you got to do what you got to do, man. You got to draw it out somehow. I was wrong about Juve getting knocked out of Europe altogether. And it's a shame because frankly, as biased as I am and as in love with my club as I am, you don't get to lose 5 out of 6 games in the group stage of the Champions League and just get parachuted into another tournament. It's bullshit. It's also bullshit that they copped Nantes in the round of 32 because obviously you're going to beat Nantes. Like, even Juve won't fuck it up against a team that unheralded. So, I mean, I hope they do. I genuinely hope that Nantes knock Juve out and like that's impetus enough for them to fire Allegri at the end of the season, even if they win the league. You know, like that's my dream. My dream is for Juve to win the league, so I'm right, so that people have more respect for the shit that I say on this. Because you say, like, oh, comedian, what do you fucking know? I know everything, but I still want Allegri fired. I want Allegri fired any day. I want Thomas Tuchel in. Either way, things are looking good for Juve. Beat Inter, who suck. They suck so bad. Limone Inzaghi's not a top tier coach. I look at him and I see like the bootleg knockoff version of his brother. Hate him. Hate that he's... I mean, I hate every person that has an affiliation with that club. But I'm so happy we beat him. Things are looking good. The kids are alright. Miretti, Fagioli, kicking ass. My boy Beans scored again. Didn't have a dream about it this week. If you listened last week, I had a dream about Fagioli scoring the winner against Lecce. Clairvoyant. Still happening without Paul Pogba, although from the way Adrien Rabiot's playing, maybe we don't need him. Fucking Rabiot, clearly playing in a contract year. Manchester United wanted to sign him, but his mum said, yeah, you got to pay X amount. They didn't want to pay X amount, so he ended up staying at Juve. And now he's playing spectacularly. He scored the same amount of goals in the last 13 games, I think it is, as the entire time that he's played for Juve combined. He's kicking ass, leader of the team. Rabiot is one of the most frustrating players I've ever seen. He is technically, physically just almost perfect. He's a really just like a template of a modern footballer, but he's a dumbass. Even in this game, he played great in this game, but even in this game, he gave the ball away and it could have been 1-1 if Szczesny hadn't made a miraculous save. Because he's a fucking headless chook. And I don't know if they're going to try and renew his contract. He's playing well enough that they should renew his contract, but it's hard to know where he fits in because all these kids are playing really well. And we'll see what goes down. But yeah, Juve to win Serie A. You heard it here. Possibly first. Fucked if I know. All right, I don't listen to other people that talk about Juve, and I will explain why in a little bit. There's a segment in my ranking of the World Cups that explains why every other Juventus supporter, basically on the planet, but especially in Australia and America, is a fuckwit except for me. Let's not fuck around anymore. Let's do this ranking. What do you think, ADP? You want to do the rankings? Yes, ADP wants to do the rankings. So let's do this. The top six, because there's been 6 World Cups that I've lived through. Let's just say 6 World Cups that I've lived through, and we're starting with number 6 in this ranking of the World Cup. Let's start with 1998. Unfortunately, 1998 had to be the bottom of these because I was 6 for this World Cup. I may have watched highlights, but I certainly didn't watch any of the games. I was not 6 years old waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch any of these games. So I didn't really appreciate. I didn't even like football when I was 6, to be honest. But you can watch my stand up to find out why. But I do remember as clearly as anything, this was my dad's first attempt at indoctrinating me into being the fucking football obsessed clone of him that you see before you today. My dad, of course, has appeared as a guest on the Kevin Lasagna podcast. You should check it out. One of the best episodes, in my opinion. Good fun. Father-son bonding. Always good. He bought me, Le Coq Sportif jerseys in the lead up to this World Cup. So I did, it's meaningful to me. And had I experienced it, I certainly would have ranked it higher because it's a great World Cup. It was the showcase of 1A and 1B of the greatest players in the world at the time, being Ronaldo or Phenomenal and Zinedine Zidane. The first time that there'd been 32 teams in the World Cup. So, you got to just open up to a whole new spectrum of different cultures and different fans. The Jamaican fans were absolutely amazing. Additionally, it was the first tournament to feature the golden goal, which I don't know about you guys. Maybe we could chat about it in the comments or whatever. But golden goal would be sick. I actually have no idea. I mean, I get it, why they repealed it, but from a fan perspective, especially when you watch neutral games, what a sick concept. Like, you do it for a certain period of time, and then you keep penalties if the golden goal isn't scored within the specific amount of time. It's awesome. There was a lot of matches decided by golden goal in this World Cup. Another special thing about it, for me personally, is that this was the first time that Croatia appeared in a World Cup as an independent nation. Always previously been represented by Yugoslavia. The big Yugoslavian war had happened in the middle of the 90s, and now you've got Croatia at the World Cup, and they did so well. A war-torn country, a fragment of a former kind of big footballing nation, and they did great. Davor Suker ended up as the Golden Boot winner. They made it pretty far, and this kind of kickstarted Croatia becoming one of the best performing countries in the last quarter of a century of the World Cup. They've always done well. They've always produced great players, culminating in, obviously, the last World Cup that we had. They made it all the way to the final. So it was really cool that all kind of kicked off in 1998. I did watch some highlights, obviously, to prepare for this, because I love you and I do my research. And I don't know if you guys get this watching football, but it was slow. Football in the 90s was slow. I don't know if it's like the cameras weren't good enough to keep up with it, the boots and the quality of the ball wasn't quite up to it, if the general athleticism, strength, and power of most of the players wasn't quite there. But just generally, the football is slower. There was one game between the golden generation of Nigeria, like JJ Okocha's fucking Eagles, and Spain, where some of the, I think it was like 4-2 the game ended up being. Some of the goals look like they happened in slow motion. The opening goal is from a really tight angle. It might have been Kanu who scored. And it it creeps in behind the keeper, and it's so, it genuinely looks like it's happening in slow motion. So football is super duper slow, but still ridiculously enjoyable. The final was really cool. It was a Zinedine Zidane show. Everything that happened with Ronaldo was kind of a bit sad, because he just didn't really turn up for the final, and he was probably the best player in the world. But Zidane seized the moment. So the football was great, and as will be a theme for me ranking these tournaments, the comedy in this World Cup was decent. It was decent. You had Romania, who for whatever reason, every single player had bleached blonde hair. That was the thing that the team decided to do. I don't know if the coach got advanced copies of the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z and just showed it to the team in the lead up to the World Cup to kind of motivate them, and they're all like, well, we're only going to be able to summon the passion and the fight that we want for this World Cup if we pretend like all the other teams just killed Krillin in front of us. There's David Beckham kicking Diego Simeone, who, if younger fans might know this, but he was just as big a piece of shit of player as he has become as a coach. Fucked around with Beckham, tripped him over, and then Beckham did a capoeira kick and it was the most David Beckham way to kick somebody. Just a kind of pansy, I'm gonna kick up at you. This is how you assault somebody on a football field if you're married to a Spice Girl and you have a different hairstyle every couple of weeks. Very, 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 very typical. It's just funny to watch the way he kicks him. France were deserved winners, and another thing that was really funny was that Fabien Barthez played amazing in goals for France in this World Cup, and the players would just make a habit of kissing him on the head. He was he was like the jade Buddha of the team, and they like kissed him after every victory, and it culminated in them winning. Obviously, football is very superstitious generally as a group of people, and it won in the World Cup. There was a period in the middle of the 2000s, at least when I can remember, where like every keeper was bald. Everyone except Gianluigi Buffon, who always had the best fucking hair. All the keepers for all the teams, it was like Tim Howard and Paul Robinson, and everyone was bald. And now, none of them are bald. Now I was struggling to think. I did some research, couldn't find any bald keeper. So I don't know how any team is going to replicate France's kind of method to madness, whatever you want to call them, kissing Barthez. Jan Oblak is probably the closest because his hairline's barely hanging on. But Slovenia, not in the World Cup. So unlucky. So that's 1998, number 6. Number 5, the 5th best World Cup in my lifetime is 2010 South Africa, bro. Which kind of sucked. Yeah, I must admit, retroactively, South Africa World Cup, as much as you can say that a World Cup sucked, it sucked. It promised so much and delivered precious little. Is the first and only World Cup to be held on African soil, which is wonderful, obviously, but it was marred by infrastructural issues leading up to the World Cup. It was marred by the Jabulani. That was the football that they used for this World Cup. I don't know if any of you bought it in 2010. I had one. It basically amounted to playing football with a volleyball. It changed. I don't know. It changed things. I didn't like the football it produced, and those fucking vuvuzelas, man. This is like this the horn. This is like the South African didgeridoo, effectively. I don't know if that's culturally insensitive to say, but it's just a horn. It's a big horn, and every single match was just that's all you could hear on TV. Apparently, when you were there live in the flesh, the sounds of the vuvuzelas actually made the atmosphere for the World Cup pretty cool. But on TV, it was a fucking nightmare, man. It was horrible to listen to. And then one of my best mates in year 12 fucking ordered one and was just constantly, and somebody on the bus, like we're school kids, we're in uniform, and he played it on the bus like an idiot, and just a civilian, a non-school person, an adult, like grabbed it off him and threw him out the window on the bus, and it was one of the best moments of my entire year 12. It was great. Another reason why the World Cup was kind of not great is because like the football just wasn't there. So many of the big teams just totally shat themselves. France had this mutiny because like Raymond Domenech basically lost the dress. He was always a shit coach. The fact that guy made the World Cup final with France in 2006 is just an overall travesty and an indictment of international football. Is you can kind of fluke it at that level. Domenech was a fucking loser. Didn't call up a whole bunch of players that had played really well, including Karim Benzema, current Ballon d'Or holder. For anybody that just like stumbled into this show. He had a fight. Domenech had a fight with Patrice Evra, who was the co-captain on the training ground. He had a fight with Nicolas Anelka in the middle of the first game and like banished Anelka, sent him home in the middle of the fucking World Cup. This prompted Zinedine Zidane to come out and say, yeah, he's not a coach, which makes me think that Zidane in 2006 probably did all the coaching himself and got France to the final. So they were like they were out in the group stage. They were shit, which they kind of deserved given that they, the handball Thierry Henry against Ireland to make this World Cup. That's kind of karmic. The French have got a lot of really likable players, but as a collective, I don't think they're super likable generally. But that's don't call me a biased Italian. The England golden generation was shit because they're always shit. They were this. I'm not the person to ask for an explanation as to why that amazing collection of players just could never play well as a team. But they were shit. They were booed in the group phase. And there's that like famous footage of Rooney, doing the like, oh, you boo your own supporter. That wasn't a great Wayne Rooney impression, but you remember the video. They somehow made it out of the group stage, and then they were absolutely pulverized by Germany in a game where Frank Lampard actually scored that phantom goal that went in off the crossbar, but it wasn't allowed, and that was the catalyst for what we now know as goal line technology coming into fruition. So that's pretty cool. Germany were lackluster. Brazil were lackluster. Italy were absolutely fucking dog shit in this tournament. Don't want to talk about that any further. Argentina were kind of funny because they had Diego Maradona as their coach. Imagine going into a tournament with your country's not only greatest ever player, possibly the greatest player to ever play the sport, but the most iconic person in the history of this country wearing the most drug dealer fucking suits while coaching. Like, he looked so chalky in these suits. He looked like it is the suit that you would imagine Diego Maradona wearing as the coach. It would have been poetic had they won, but it was not to be because he wasn't a coach. Like, he called up a guy called Ariel Garce who played. He was 30. He had played like 3 games total for Argentina in his life. But Maradona had a dream that his Argentina team won the World Cup. And the only player that he could remember in this dream was Ariel Garce, who played for Colón in Argentina, who had come 14th that season. And so he called him up. He was the only player that he could remember from the dream. So he called him up to just ensure that the dream came to fruition. It didn't. When you have such a large proportion of hyper-talented players just across the board not playing well, that's how you know it's a bad World Cup. As bad as the World Cup can get, it was still amazing to appreciate. But there was still absolutely plenty of positives for this World Cup. Number one, the soundtrack, awesome. Wave and Flag, probably my favorite World Cup song. That isn't Ricky Martin's The Cup of Life, 1998, yeah, which I forgot to mention before. Another great facet of the 1998 World Cup. Waka Waka by Shakira, which is frankly an extremely annoying but very popular song on the soundtrack. Ghana acquitted themselves so well, led by the just conceptually amazing Asamoah Gyan, who is just what an enigmatic footballer in footballing history. This guy only ever showed up for the World Cup. I couldn't tell you. I think he played in France for a little bit. He played with Sunderland for a little while. Didn't really have a great club career. Wore the number 3 even though he was a striker because fuck you, that's why. And he looked like he played at the 2006 World Cup, he played at the 2010 World Cup, he played at the 2014 World Cup, and he looked 45 no matter how old he was. And he always showed up for Ghana during the World Cup and played awesome. And they generally played awesome in this World Cup, and they would have been the first ever African team to make the semi-final of a World Cup, but for Uruguay and Luis Suarez just like solidifying his piece of shit credentials. Like the warning shot was fired in the group stage when he just bit Giorgio Chiellini out of the blue, and then the handball that he did when Ghana would have scored in like the dying embers of the match to win the game, does a blatant fucking volleyball spike, and then Asamoah Gyan steps up and misses the penalty, and Ghana ended up going out on penalties to Uruguay. Suarez got sent off, and usually, you know, you see it a lot of times at tournaments where there'll be one player for a nation who is just like their talisman, and you need him to be a face. Because if he is a heel, if he has a heel turn during the tournament, you're fucked. Think of Wayne Rooney in 2004, in 2006, in 2012. Think of any time that Wayne Rooney was like depended on to be like the hero for England, and he just turned heel and did some weird shit, which we'll discuss very, very shortly. But it was okay that Suarez was the heel because he didn't need to be the face, because Uruguay had Diego Forlan, who was the player of the tournament. He scored like 4 or 5 goal of the tournament contenders, and he was just fucking on in this World Cup. He was awesome, and it's a shame that he never kind of replicated it at club level, because he was good for Atletico a little bit. Didn't cut the mustard at Man United, but he's just one of these players that just has a ballsack World Cup, and then you don't really he didn't quite hit that level, and we'll talk about a few of those guys coming up. Spain were worth it. They played awesome. They didn't play as well as they did in Euro 2008, but they were definitely the best team in the World Cup. And what that team did to win Euro, World Cup, Euro again, back to back to back tournaments, fucking mind blowing, and they should really be spoken about as possibly the greatest international team of all time. They won it, and it is a little bit perversely funny to me that the first African World Cup was won by like the whitest looking team ever. I watched the celebration, like the trophy lift, and looking at like David Villa looks like, he looks kind of woggy. Gerard Piqué, they're kind of olivey, but the rest, like, they all look like Fernando Torres generally, like Fernando Torres, Capdevila, Puyol, Casillas, like they all look like accountants. They look like super hyper white guys, like not like, you know what I'm saying, all right? And it's made me laugh, all right? Made me laugh. Sue me. What are you gonna do about it? So that's 2010. Number four, fourth best World Cup of my lifetime is 2018. The most recent World Cup was okay, but for some reason it doesn't stick out in my memory as being super good. Might be a combination of the fact that I had just started comedy and I was kind of head first in trying to get my comedy career off and running, and this is probably the least I had paid attention to football as a whole in my adult lifetime. Combination of that and fuck Russia. Fuck Russia. Anytime I think about anything Russian, I'm just like, fuck them. It's not just about what they represent globally as a nation, as a people, or as just like a country with a comical supervillain, Dr. Evil fucking leader. It's what they are as a football nation as well. I've never given a fuck about any Russian player not named Andrei Arshavin. They should be better, given the population, given who they think they are in this world, given how well they do in other sports. The fact that Russia isn't a top footballing producing nation is fucking embarrassing. And the World Cup that they held is a reflection of that. The music, the soundtrack, fucking garbage. Total departure from like we had an amazing soundtrack in 2010, South Africa. Brazil, obviously, the South American music is just fucking awesome. The music in Russia was fucking garbage. Like, obviously, they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They weren't going to have just Russian music. God forbid. So they generally had like a continental European vibe to the soundtrack. And most notably, like, the further away geographically from Russia the musical influence was on this soundtrack, like the more Spanish it sounded, the songs, the better, the more palatable, and the closer to Russia it was like, man, I don't watch Eurovision for exactly this reason. I need to hear this Boris shit. So that wasn't great. The football overall wasn't great. It was okay. France definitely deserved winners. What the French team is producing these days in terms of having like 3 world-class starting 11s is a bit fucking bonkers. And they were good value to win it, but they weren't great to watch. Didier Deschamps, he knew exactly what he was doing. He's going to play the 2 centre-backs as the full-backs. He's going to defend for his fucking life, and he's going to just have, like, the tactics going forward are have Pogba, Kante, Griezmann, Mbappe, Giroud, and whomever else is there just do their thing. That's the tactics, and, power to him. He won the World Cup. You can't say anything about it. Although this is an aside, and I think I alluded to this before, but I listened to this podcast. I hate listening to it. I schadenfreude listened to this Juventus podcast, these American guys. I won't name them by name, but like Google American Juventus podcast and you'll find them. And there's one guy who just like purports to be this amazing expert about Juve, and he comes up with some of the stupidest shit I've ever heard of. The taster for that is he was happy that we got rid of Ronaldo because, quote, Ronaldo is a Luca Toni type player these days. I understand I get the logic, I understand what he's trying to say, but how he allowed that sequence of words to escape from his mouth in that order, it's like, you shouldn't be watching football, man. You just don't say that shit. Anyway, this guy during the big Allegri out movement of like a month ago, which is kind of still going, but just watch, we're gonna win the fucking league and whatever. He was like, well, hopefully after the World Cup, a lot of these big coaches from the World Cup might become available, and they might swap them out including Didier Deschamps, who's probably going to leave France after this World Cup. And I'm like, bro, Didier Deschamps won the World Cup playing Allegri ball. Like, what don't you understand? What the fuck is... It's just, yeah. Idiots. I don't hang shit on these people, but come on, man. Do better. The other thing that France kind of had for them was that Hugo Lloris played pretty well for most of the World Cup. I really don't like Hugo Lloris. I think Hugo Lloris is probably one of the most overrated goalkeepers ever. He makes spectacular saves and he's a decent shot stopper. But the amount of mistakes that this guy's liable for, there's a reason why he never made it further than Tottenham, yeah? And he made a massive mistake in 2014, and he made a massive mistake in the final of 2018, which allowed Croatia to score the second goal. It was okay by then, but it's like, man, this guy's legacy is just so much more than it should be. One of the most overrated keepers ever, and he's going to be playing for France in next week because he's the captain and because hierarchy and whatever, but qualitatively, France are in good hands with Mike Maignan, who is injured for this World Cup, unfortunately, because Mike Maignan is he's like a Thierry Henry of goalkeepers. I'm saying it here. He will be the best goalkeeper in the world for the foreseeable future. Love that guy. And still plenty to love about this World Cup, even though I've spoken a bit of shit about it. It's the first time in my lifetime that I've ever experienced Germany being shit. They got fucked by Mexico. They got fucked by South Korea. They got fucked by Sweden, but they managed to beat them. They went out in the group stage, and I loved every moment of it. Another thing to love was the Socceroos, as always, acquitted themselves well. When I was doing research for this, I was experiencing this weird deja vu because Mile Jedinak scored a World Cup penalty for the third straight tournament, and I just like that team. I think we were Asian champions at that point, but that Socceroos team in 2018, like, they weren't good. They were better than this current crop that are going to go into this tournament. We're going to speak about that next week, how they're going to do. We just love that we always show up. The Socceroos, no matter how unheralded, no matter how unfancied they are, we always show up. The Socceroos are genuinely one of the most likable teams in the World Cup in the last 20 years. I mean it so genuinely. And we'll chat about them a little bit more later. It's great to see Croatia make the final. Like I said before, Croatia, great footballing story to come out of the Yugoslavian war and just cement themselves as always they're going to do damage at the World Cup. Always. Love to see that. And Perisic proved in this World Cup. I love Perisic. I know I said before I don't want to praise anybody associated with Inter in any way, but Ivan Perisic proved in this World Cup that he is criminally not considered one of this generation's best footballers. So versatile, so consistent, tactically, technically, physically, can both feet, just incredible. The guy took a corner earlier this season for Tottenham. He took a corner in one game with each foot. Like, he took a left-footed corner and then he took a right-footed corner. Fucking awesome. Perisic was great in this World Cup. So great to see that. And finally, it goes what I said before about the football not being good and about France winning it in kind of boring fashion. But the France-Argentina game where Pavard scored that mind-bending goal, genuinely one of the best games of football that I've ever seen. France winning 4-3. Go and check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, number 3, the third best tournament of my lifetime as far as World Cups goes is 2002. This is the tournament that made my generation, anybody around my age, give or take a couple of years, fall in love with football. This is the first World Cup to be held in Asia. It was a combined tournament with Japan and Korea. And what a lot of people don't know is that Japan and Korea did not want to host this World Cup together at all. They both had submitted separate bids. And they were going to lose to Mexico. Mexico were going to get this World Cup. And then the head of the Asian Football Association suggested that they submit a joint bid. And Japan and Korea reluctantly were like, okay, fine, and they won it in the end, which was great for for both countries. But historically, Japan and Korea fucking hate each other. Right? Anybody who has had the mispleasure of watching the show on Netflix called Kim's Convenience, it's just straight up a racist show. But if you've seen it, you will know that there is a big feud between Japanese and Korean people, and it must have hurt their pride somewhat to have to share, but great tournament, which started the trend, which has endured till this tournament that we've got right now, where the defending champions just don't rock up. France were defending champions of both the World Cup and the Euros, and they came in and they had the worst World Cup defense, not like their defense, like their defending of the title, the worst in history. They were shell shocked by Senegal, who were debutants and just like came in with this super high octane, super athletic team with a whole bunch of players who earned moves to big clubs and then kind of flopped. I'm looking at you, El Hadj Diouf. They shell shocked in the group stage opener against Senegal, and they never recovered. Senegal did great. They ended up becoming sentimental favorites of the tournament. They made the quarterfinals. They had fun. The tournament generally was amazing, but there was one shit thing that I will get out of the way. There was a clear agenda, obviously, and I know what I'm going to sound like here, bitter Italian guy, but like facts are facts, all right? There was a clear agenda to get South Korea as far as possible in the World Cup, in the quarterfinals against Spain. There was a couple of bullshit goals ruled out, and Spain were a much better team, but somehow they got through. And of course, most notoriously, against Italy in the round of 16, like the referees had clearly been given a mandate, and like, I don't know, a lifetime supply of kimchi to just like get South Korea over the line. Bogus offsides, goals ruled out for Italy that were definitely goals. Francesco Totti sent off, like crazy shit. And like I actually didn't watch this game. This is on a school day, so I had to go to school because I was 10. But I do remember distinctly during this game being woken up at 5:30 by the largest barrage of fanculos I've ever heard coming out of anywhere, emanating from my dad, just like bellowing across the house. It was the Fanculo show, and rightfully so, man. This was bad. Now, again, I know what it sounds like, but I honestly, like, trust me, no country deserves to cop a Montreal screw job like Italy, other than maybe Uruguay, but at this point it was definitely Italy. I just hate that it was so blatant that it kind of sullied what it meant to have South Korea make it all the way to the third place playoff. This is incredible to have the first Asian country make it that far on home soil. It was wonderful, and it's sullied by the fact that it was just so like such a blatant agenda. I did a Kevin Lasagna appreciation podcast episode on Ang, who scored against Italy for Korea, who played for Perugia at the time. And the Perugia president like fired him because he had destroyed Italian football, which is hilarious. Like you're gonna fire a person that you employ to play football for playing football. Anyway, typical Italian shit. Goes back into what I was saying before about how nobody deserves it more. Speaking of deserving, South Korea in the semifinals were put out of their misery by Michael Ballack, one of my favorite players ever. I love him so much. Like, all action, could do everything in midfield. Handsome fucking guy. Probably my favorite German player of all time. And that year, he lost everything. He lost the World Cup final. He lost the Champions League final. He just narrowly lost the Bundesliga to Bayern Munich, who he went on to join after because he was playing for Leverkusen at the time. The football had clearly gotten faster since 1998 in this World Cup, which was fun to watch. I think advancements in athleticism and like technology with the boots and the balls just made it a much funner watch. The first time in history that the quarterfinals had 5 different continents represented, because you had Senegal representing Africa, you had Korea obviously representing Asia, you had a bunch of European teams are still in it at this point: Spain, Germany, Turkey. You had Brazil, obviously, from South America, and you had the US and Mexico from North America. So that's super cool. Brazil. This Brazil team, it's like this is a steroids team. This is a hack team. This is a team that you just designed from in a laboratory. They were so good. On paper, for me, the best international side ever: Roberto Carlos, Cafu, Lucio, Gilberto Silva, Zé Roberto. A young Kaká was actually in this team. Didn't play, but a young Kaká was in the team. And then you got the big three. Rivaldo, who Rivaldo is probably most remembered in this tournament for the first game that they played against Turkey, where the guy kicks the ball at him and it rolls up his leg and he falls over clutching his face and got the guy sent off. Which man, tell me you grew up playing football in South America without telling me you grew up playing football in South America. The eyes and the cameras of the world are on you, and you just decide, nah, I'm gonna try and piece of shit this. Could you imagine if somebody tried to pull that off with VAR going these days? Come on, awesome. But what that kind of masks over is that Rivaldo, easily the second best player of that tournament. He was fucking awesome. Scored a number of important goals. A kind of lost to history player because he existed in that kind of period where Ronaldo was incredible and Romario was kind of ending. Rivaldo is still highly heralded, but he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I'm saying that even though I hate Olympiacos and he played for them. Ronaldinho hadn't quite become Ronaldinho just yet, but he was there. He was incredible. Scored that amazing chipped free kick against England. What more needs to be said about Ronaldinho other than, do you know some people don't know who Ronaldinho, not who he is, but okay. So I did a gig. Indulge me for a moment with this story. I did a gig on Friday night. Friday that just passed. Probably the worst gig I've ever done in my life. For some reason, football clubs, obscure MPL football clubs, do their trophy presentation night, and they're like, "Oh, we'll get a comedian. This will be fun." And they expect me to be a magician and just pull a fucking dove out of my asshole or something in the middle of. It's always in the middle of a restaurant where there's the bar and the food going, and everybody's been out drinking all day, and nobody knows comedy's happening, and they're all facing each other. And no one, it was horrible, but I got my paper. Don't you worry, I got my paper for it, and I went home. And the MC on the night conspired to fuck me. He was the whitest man ever. He called me up to do my set 40 minutes before my call time. I got half a salt and pepper calamari down my throat as I went up to do my set. And the reason why I bring this up is because they were auctioning off as a raffle present this signed Ronaldinho jersey, and he announced it a couple of times throughout the night, this MC, and every single time he would pronounce him Roldilio. He would call him Roldilio instead of Ronaldinho. And I'm like, how were you alive and existing anywhere? Even in Australia, where football hadn't, the 2006 World Cup made Australia go, oh, there's this game where you kick it around with your feet and it's pretty good. But before that, obviously, football was very low on the totem pole, but everybody in the world knew who Ronaldinho was. The world sportsman at this time. To be able to get away with not knowing how to fucking pronounce the guy's name, shame on you, Luke. I think the guy's name was. Come on, bro. I hope that jersey shattered as he handed it to whoever won it. I wouldn't know because I did my set and ran away immediately as soon as I got my money. So yeah, Roldilio, what a fucking tournament he had, but nobody could touch Ronaldo. Phenomenal. The original Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, the fat Ronaldo, as some people very derogatorily call him. He is for me the greatest player of all time, and it's because of this tournament, because I saw for the first time in my life, he had a stellar supporting cast, but this man came in to this World Cup with this chip on his shoulder from 1998, determined to win the World Cup on his own. He scored 8 goals in total, ridiculous clutch moments, the super duper important goals, including 2 in the final. And he won the World Cup by himself for Brazil. And I had never even conceived that something like that was possible. And the best part about it is that he decided to just like flop his dick out to the rest of the world and prove just how iconic he could be by doing it with the worst haircut that anybody has ever had in history, period. So that's 2002. The second best World Cup in my lifetime is 2014, where the aforementioned Brazil, it was kind of a really momentous thing for, Brazil, the kings of football. They won more World Cups than anyone else, and this was like the moment to reclaim their crown 12 years after they had lost it. The World Cup was going to be in Brazil. The football in the Brazil World Cup was really, really good. It was everything that you want in a World Cup. Big teams performing well. Nobody really choked until the biggest choke in footballing history. Some of my favorite things from this World Cup: Robin van Persie's physics-defying header against Spain. I could watch that all day. I don't like headers. I never went for headers because this nose is the moneymaker when I played. But that header was... Socceroos. Boy, they had a tough as fuck group. Spain, Chile, and the Netherlands. We didn't come out of the group this time, but boy, did we do well. Tim Cahill scored that amazing goal against the Netherlands that I'll never forget. We always rock up. We always rock up to the big tournaments, and it makes me so kind of nationalistically proud. Costa Rica, out of nowhere, surprise of the tournament. The world was introduced to Keylor Navas, who is like the anti-Loris. He's like this guy, easily in the top 5 goalkeepers for the last 8 years in Europe, hands down, doesn't get the praise that he deserves. Colombia. This is one of the things that I'm hoping we'll get at this World Cup coming up. But Colombia hadn't made it for a while. They turned up after having not qualified for a few tournaments. They turned up stacked. Cuadrado, Armero, Freddy Guarin, David Ospina, Mario Yepes, Carlos Bacca, and of course, the name is Bond, James Rodriguez. If you don't know what that reference is, when James Rodriguez was playing, James was playing his socks off in this World Cup. The Times India released this front page of their sports newspaper that said that had the name is Bond, James Rodriguez. Sure, good work, guys. He was mesmeric at this World Cup. He was the top scorer. He was their focal point. He was their inspiration. He was, Real Madrid bought him off the back of the strength of this tournament. He never produced at club level what he produced in this World Cup. Forlan, eat your heart out. But he was amazing. And I truly believe that this Colombia team had their actual best player, one of my personal favorite players in the last 15 years, Radamel Falcao, their captain. He had gotten injured before the World Cup. Had he not been injured, I genuinely think they would have beaten Brazil in the quarterfinals, who they only narrowly lost to. Brazil was starting to wobble in this game. They looked vulnerable against Colombia. They started to wobble, but they fell off the tracks amazingly altogether, losing 7-1 infamously to Germany. David Luiz played possibly the worst game I've ever seen a defender at the top level of football play. They got absolutely fucked by Germany, and I was drunk in Europe watching this game, and I thought that somebody had slipped acid into my drink because I couldn't believe that Brazil were losing 7-1 to Germany. They were so rattled that they played the third, fourth playoff, and they copped 3 goals against the Netherlands. So people forget that they conceded 10 goals in 2 games in their own backyard. It's like pretty bad. Germany went on to play Argentina. Argentina had a pretty average team, top to bottom. On paper, their only real stars were Di Maria, Higuain, Mascherano, Aguero, who got injured towards the end of the group stage. Those are their stars, but they did have Lionel fucking Messi. I don't think I've ever seen Messi. Like, Messi is Messi. I don't need to wax lyrical about Lionel Messi, but I don't think he was ever better than in the 2014 World Cup. He carried the team. He was untouchable. Scored some amazing clutch goals. I wish he had won it because he was he was phenomenal. He deserves to win a World Cup, certainly in his life. If this motherfucker rocks up next week to Qatar with no beard, it's over. Place your bets now. Call Sportsbet. It's done. Beardless Messi if he comes, the beard Messi's cool, but beard Messi's like, fun dad. I've already had the best career ever. I'm just gonna like play make for fun, and let Mbappe and Neymar enjoy themselves, and I'm just gonna cry at press conferences. But beardless Messi coming to play. So great World Cup, love 2014, and it would have been probably the best World Cup I had ever seen had 2006 not happened. I think this is probably the easiest thing ever. If you were following along at the start and you like have any conception of who I am as a person, you would have guessed that this would be my favorite tournament ever. This jersey might have given it away too. There's always like I've given it away at the start. This is a callback essentially. But yeah, 2006, the greatest World Cup of all time. I promise you. If 2002 had made my generation fall in love with football, you like football? I like football. If 2002 had made my generation fall in love with football, 2006 made us blow our entire life savings on a 20-carat diamond fucking ring and ask football to spend the rest of its life with us. Where do you start with this tournament? The ball was beautiful. The kits would like, look at this. This is the best kit Australia have ever had. It's simple, it's nuanced, it's delicious, it's amazing. One of my favorite jerseys ever. Also, the away kit that Australia had, the blue, navy blue, gorgeous. I had it, I wore it all the time. My dad's car got broken into in 2008 and somebody stole it, and I haven't gotten over it, and I don't think I ever will. The kits are amazing, top to bottom, especially like the Adidas and the Puma kits. Gorgeous. And the football was out of this world in that World Cup, man. The tournament opened with host Germany up against Costa Rica, and it was that game was emblematic of what that tournament was to be. 4-2. Philipp Lahm, probably one of the best fullbacks in history, opens the scoring with a belter. Torsten Frings closes the scoring with an even better goal. Like, it's like, go and watch there's a video of like all the goals from the World Cup if you want. It's like a 24-minute video that's worth it just to see the goals, because at least a quarter of the goals from the whole tournament, no shit, were from outside of the box and were belters. The pick of them in the World Cup group stage for me was Joe Cole against Sweden. It's one of those mind-bending like volleys that's like changes trajectory a million times in the air, and never, especially like definitely not next week, definitely not in any of the other tournaments recently, was there a more stacked tournament in terms of sheer star power and footballing ability. Player for player, all the big teams had a world-class 11 plus like 3 or 4 people that they could bring off the bench that you're like, oh fuck, you remember that guy? Germany, Portugal, Spain, Argentina, France, Czech Republic, Italy, Brazil are the same team that destroyed 2002 plus Adriano and Robinho. Like, great, sick. I think that Kaká is a starter and Dida is a starter instead this time around. Ivory Coast, golden, shining generation, and had they not been drawn in like a bonkers group, they would have made it quite far in that tournament. Even most of the weaker teams had at least one world-class player. The aforementioned Costa Rica, they had Paulo Wanshop. Togo had Adebayor. Trinidad and Tobago had Dwight York. Korea had Park Ji-sung. The Ukraine had Andriy Shevchenko. Like, this obviously this is biased, but that's what you're here for. This is a biased opinion show. This is me. This is like just comedians' football opinions. So I'm gonna say it. My time, my era of football, mid 2000s, like 2003 to 2010, best period of football of all time, hands fucking down. Like, there's no other way to put it. Every single team, amazing players, now can't even come close to competing. And no team exemplifies that more than the Waggaroos. The Waggaroos, it'll take 100 years before Australia ever have a team anywhere near as good as the Waggaroos. Like, and obviously I'm calling them Waggaroos because just all of them were Greeks, Italians, and Croatians. And we had Scott Chipperfield and Brett Emerton, who, if you like interview them, they speak like Wogs too, because they grew up playing with Wogs. The Waggaroos, so good. I cried at how well we did against Brazil in that game. Went down 2-0. Bresciano could well have scored to make it 1-1. It was awesome. And the dramatic fight backs and heart that the Socceroos showed against Japan and Croatia, amazing. Went out against eventual winners Italy. I don't, that's a game that conceptually tears me apart. Obviously, a lot of Australians are like, it's a fucking farce, he dived. But if you remember the game, Marco Materazzi got sent off from a very, very soft tackle, and Australia playing against 10 men. So, on the balance of things, yes, the better team went through, and it was the best team in the tournament. So the fact that we, for the only time in our history, made the round of 16 and lost to the eventual winner, it's still great. Lick your wounds, Australian fans. It's okay. Materazzi, by the way, it was that guy's tournament. That guy, proper average defender, proper average defender. Not a world-class player by any stretch of the imagination. He only started for Italy in a few of the games because Alessandro Nesta, possibly the finest defender of his generation, 1A and 1B with Fabio Cannavaro, captain, who won the whole fucking... You know Cannavaro is. You don't need me to tell you who the greatest defender of all time is. Materazzi gives away the penalty in the final, then scores the equaliser with a header. He scores his penalty in the shootout, and then he was responsible for the most infamous moment of the tournament by saying to Zinedine Zidane, I fucked your sister, and Zidane headbutts him. He wasn't the player of the tournament, but he's the character of the tournament for sure, Materazzi. And I do hate him. He's Inter through and through. He's Mr. Inter. I hate him, but I also love him. Do with that what you will. So important to Italy winning the World Cup. Probably half of the top 50 World Cup goals ever are from this tournament. Maxi Rodriguez against Mexico did Joe Cole, but better and in a more important phase of the tournament. That one goal of the tournament, that was amazing. Loved that goal. My favorite goal was... my favorite goal was, of course, my boy here, Alessandro Del Piero's winner against Germany. It was the most Del Piero goal ever, coming in through with Gilardino on the counter-attack. Curved it around Lehmann, the perfect one-touch curve goal. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. My favorite part about how that goal starts is that, Fabio Cannavaro jumps 5 meters in the air to win the ball, heads it to Pirlo, pass to Gilardino, pass to Del Piero, bam, and then once that goal went in, it's Italy are in the fucking final. That was my favorite goal. My favorite non-Italy goal was Ronaldo classic or Fenomeno's goal against Ghana. Brazil beat Ghana 3-0. It was the opening goal. He gets sent through. Classic Ronaldo step over, beats the keeper, slots it in. You know the rest. And I loved it because Ronaldo had fallen so far. Brazil weren't lighting it up at all. Brazil weren't playing well in the World Cup. There was something off about their chemistry. Ronaldo had really bad injuries. He had put on a bit of weight at this point. And this goal against Ghana was the typical Ronaldo goal. And it was just a reminder to the world, make sure you didn't forget who the fuck I am. Loved it. And yeah, it solidified him. I think that goal solidified him as the top scorer in the World Cup ever, which was eventually usurped by Miroslav Klose at some point. But it is what it is. The comedy in this World Cup was amazing. Against USA, Italy drew 1-1. It was the only team that didn't beat in the World Cup was the USA. And the own goal that Christian Zaccardo scored against the US it's the best own goal I've ever seen, because the technique to pull it off, it's basically a outside of the foot back spinning half volley. You could not plan it. It's hilarious. Go and check it out. I love Australia versus Croatia. Niko Kovac she was the captain, and great player, played for Bayern, coached Bayern. Niko Kovac took a shot from outside of the box against Zelko Kalac, who hadn't played the first 2 games of the group stage, but he was kind of like 1A, 1B to Schwarzer. He played for Milan, so Gusitic chucked him in to play against Croatia. And as that ball's coming, like it's a straight, direct shot straight at him, and as it's coming, he dives to parry it, I guess. And I think Kalac had like a Manchurian Candidate moment where like his Croatian upbringing, like the Croatian national anthem, started playing in his head, and he's like, now is the time to do it, and he just like, the ball just like hits him, and he almost chucks it into the net, which made it 2-1 to Croatia. And until Harry Kuehl scored, we weren't going through. So that like retrospectively, it's funny. In the moment, it wasn't funny. But retrospectively, it's moment. Wayne Rooney, like we said before, prone to a heel turn, big time heel turn to get him knocked out, to get England knocked out against Portugal, kicking Ricardo Carvalho in the dick. Yep, kicked him straight in the dick. What, like, it's just. I watched a documentary about Rooney recently, and it reminded me of just how mercurial and wonderful of a player he is in just like every respect. Like generational talent, and the hype around him was really justified, but man, was he liable for a crazy fucking moment. And this kicking Carvalho, like, it wasn't an accident. He kicked him straight, and like he stomped his dick, like it was WWE. It was great. Wayne Rooney also appeared on an episode of WWE Raw. Check it out; it's good fun. Against Ukraine, this was really funny. Against Ukraine, the second or third goal for Italy, cross comes in from the left. I think it was Fabio Grosso, and players are in the box, and Fabio Cannavaro again jumps like fucking 5 meters in the air. He's a small guy, he's shorter than me, jumps 5 meters in the air, goes to the header, it just narrowly misses his head. Goes behind him to Luca Toni, 6'5", who had to like bend over as far as he could to get the header. He scores. It was just so comical to see one guy rise so high, miss it, other guy bends over, scores. So good. Fabio Cannavaro, 5'8", which I think is shorter than Lisandro Martinez. The only defender I think ever to win the Ballon d'Or. Virgil van Dijk didn't win the Ballon d'Or, did he? Maybe he did. No, I don't think he did. Whatever. No, he didn't. The only defender, as far as I can remember, winning the Ballon d'Or, 5'8". So anybody with the like on the Lisandro Martinez is too short bandwagon, you don't know shit. And the final funny thing of the tournament was I guess another Manchurian Candidate moment, or maybe just like a crisis of conscience, because of course the player to miss the penalty, ultimately handing Italy the World Cup, was David Trezeguet, who of course played for Juve. And I was kind of reminded of that in the Euros, the last Euros, when Alvaro Morata was the one that missed the penalty in order for Italy to beat Spain. Because I just guess that some of these strikers, they just love Juve more than they love their country, and they're just willing to make that sacrifice. Because you know, maybe they heeded the warning of Ang in South Korea in 2002, and they didn't want to get fired by Juve. So they're just like, oh no, I hit the post. Oh no, please don't sack me. I need this, my family. So I love Trezeguet doing that, and thanks, bro. Trezeguet ended up staying at Juve even though we got relegated to the second division. One of my favorite players of all time. Love you, Trez, my man. That's been it, guys. That's been the rankings. I don't know if you agree or if you disagree. I'm sure the rankings were somewhat surprising, but also blatantly obvious if you know anything about me and everything that I've spoken about. And that's what this episode's going to be. We're going to do one more preview episode before the World Cup. It'll be coming out in a week, and it's going to be me doing my tips. Now, a friend of mine suggested that we do tips for this. Like we'll do a Mr. Sitter tipping comp. I'm happy to do that, but I also don't want to like be left hanging. So if you want to do a tipping thing with me for this, that'd be cool. Just like leave a comment or yeah, nice. This has been the Mr. Sitter podcast. I thank you all tremendously for sticking with me, and let's play that music. If everything about me didn't give it away, I'm a soccer guy. I
play against the computer only. Because if I lose and I throw a tantrum, the computer isn't going to send me messages all week calling me sad shit dick. Alright. But the higher teams are probably a little bit too advanced for the drills that I pinched off the FIFA loading screen.
Bro, Mo Salah is putting Egypt on the map.
You better start giving some energy and some love for Mr. Anthony Locascio!
He's the greatest player in the world.